Yeah, we're going live again on a Monday. And this time I've got San Francisco Chronicle Golden State Warriors beat reporter Sam Gordon joining me. I'm stoked. It's not just my ugly mug you have to look at this time. I've got a handsome gentleman next to me. We're talking Warriors. We're talking NBA because I feel like, I don't know if you agree or not, Sam, but I feel like this Nuggets-Timberwolves series is the NBA Finals. It's going to start tonight. We'll get into all that and so much more next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and exclusively live on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that's FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. I always love these promos because all you got to do is place $5 on the most obvious bet, money line be damned, and you get $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. You can follow Golden State Warriors beat reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, Sam Gordon. He's in that locker room. He travels, I don't know, technically with the team, but you're going to all the same cities and all the same arenas. You are literally an insider. You're one of the few that has the kind of access that you do. Sam, such a pleasure to have you on the program again. Follow Sam Gordon on Twitter at @BySamGordon. Again, BY in front of your name, by Sam Gordon. It's a byline as a handle. Sam, how the hell are you doing, brother? Thanks for coming back on the program. I'll always say this. If Connor Letourneau vouches for you, you're good in my book. And so great to see you again. It's been a little while. How's the offseason treating you so far, man? And tell us how your first year was from your perspective covering the Golden State Warriors.
Oh, man. Well, first and foremost, Cyrus, appreciate you having me back on the show. And second, love that you called it Twitter instead of X. I'm a Twitter, it's Twitter forever for me too. So I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with it. I love it and I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything's good on my end. The season flew by. It was a whirlwind. I had an absolute blast, just kind of getting my feet wet and adjusting to not only covering the Warriors, covering the NBA, but life in the Bay Area after 7 years in Las Vegas. So all that, very much a whirlwind, but it went well. Offseason, it's here, right? It's been what now? It's almost 3 weeks for the Warriors since they've been in offseason mode. So. It kind of surreal that how fast everything went by and how deep into the offseason we are. But that just means that the NBA playoffs, as you alluded to during the Open, are heating up. So this is generally my favorite round where you've got two great series on both sides. The Knicks and Pacers were in a barn burner. The Timberwolves and Nuggets about to tip. So a lot of great hoop on, even if the Warriors aren't a part of it. So enjoying that and enjoying the offseason to the best of my ability.
You're from Minnie, is that correct?
I was born and raised in Minneapolis, yep.
So do you have a stake in this? Are you a Timberwolves fan? Is that your team?
I grew up watching the Timberwolves. I follow very closely from afar, and I'm just looking forward to good basketball.
Nobody's judging you if you are. It's okay. You can admit it.
What I can tell you is that growing up in Minneapolis and having followed the Timberwolves and been there, through the Kevin Garnett era and then afterwards and, not being in the city when Anthony Edwards is there, but, of course, following along from afar, it's very much surreal and unbelievable that they're a legitimate NBA championship contender. I mean, this was one of the most futile franchises in the league for so long, and here they are now trading haymakers with the defending NBA champions having gone in there and stolen game one. So just unbelievable how far they've come in the last few years, and it's very much a credit to obviously everybody in the organization, but Anthony Edwards really turned things around, drafting him with number one overall pick. So he's the biggest reason why they're in the spot they're in right now, for sure.
Incredible what one superstar player can do to your organization. I mean, Stephen Curry, what he did to the Warriors is testament to that. And then Anthony Edwards, same. What a special player he already is at just the young age of 22. I really do believe this. And I said this in the cold open, and I'll say it again. I'm curious to know what your answer to this is. We'll make this. We'll talk Warriors, I promise. But in my opinion, this Nuggets Timberwolves series is the NBA Finals. I think whoever wins this series is gonna hoist Larry O'Brien in 2 months or a month and a half, whenever it is. I really do. I don't. Even though I know the Celtics, they did incredible things this regular season, but that Kristaps Porzingis injury, that's not something you're coming back from immediately. I would not be surprised if he's done for the postseason. That was a serious injury he suffered, and without him, I don't think they stand a chance. Even with him, I still think both Minnesota and Denver are the favorites, and I don't think OKC's stopping either of these teams either. And I think I just named everyone who is a legitimate threat. What are your thoughts, man? Do you think this is the NBA Finals or no?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways this represents these represent the best two teams in the league. I'm with you on Boston, of course. Incredibly talented. They're loaded. They could obviously win the championship, and this might be a bloodbath kind of series, right? That goes 6 or 7 games in terms of Minnesota and Denver. But I'm with you. You have the defending NBA champions, Nikola Jokic, best player in the league in his prime, heading towards a third MVP. We know the chemistry, the cohesion, the pedigree that they have. And then when you take a look at the Wolves, they're huge for one. They have a superstar on the wing in Anthony Edwards for two. They're deep for three, and everybody can play defense on their team. It's a team full of two-way players. So these two teams were at the top of the Western Conference, along with Oklahoma City all year long. They're jockeying for position. It's not a coincidence that they're prime championship contenders, and we'll see how that other series on the West turns out as well. So, but I'm generally with you. I think they're the best two teams left standing. We'll see how everything decides itself in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and to me, if you're a Warriors fan, you should be watching this series extra carefully, because I'm guessing, and please clarify or correct or add on to anything I say, but the Warriors, their mentality is we're still title contenders, even though they finished as a 10 seed this past year. I imagine that's their goal. I hope it's their goal. Otherwise, I feel like you're doing a great disservice to Stephen Curry, even if the goal is incredibly challenging at this point. But that Minnesota Denver series, to me, if you're a Warriors fan or if you work for the Warriors in their front office, you're watching that and thinking to yourself, that's who we have to beat, right? Like that's the model. That's who's at the top of the mountain that we have to figure out to how to overcome. Would you say that's a fair assessment? And if yes, man, what do they do? And that's too broad of a question. Let me narrow it down. Let's start with the size thing. I recorded a show this morning, and I'll say it again. The average height in the NBA is 6'7". These two teams right now are huge. I think whatever the Warriors plan on doing next, I'm glad Steve Kerr, in one of the exit interviews he did, admitted that they're small. I just to hear him say that is huge. But so in your opinion, do you agree with that? Is that going to be the focus? Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I definitely agree that with your sentiment that the Warriors are going to do everything that they can to try and contend, right? Stephen Curry, 2 more years under contract. With where he's at, with the level he's still able to reach, still one of the best players in the NBA. You kind of have to go for it if he's on your team. And if you fall short, you fall short. It is what it is. The West is loaded with young teams. Oklahoma City was a 1 seed. They're going to be getting better. Minnesota's getting better. Denver, that unit, that core guys are in their respective primes. In Dallas, Luka Doncic is 25 years old, right? He's still in so many ways an ascending player. That being said, you got to still try. You still have to go for it. So I'm with you in the sense that that's the organizational mentality. You're going to be looking for ways to upgrade the roster however you can this summer within reason. We know that there hasn't been a specific edict laid out from ownership per se as in terms of saving money, but they just spent $400 million on a team that didn't make the playoffs. You're not trying to do that again. So I think that marrying this, it's a challenge, right? It's why we're having this conversation. Finding youth, finding positional size on the wing, finding two-way players, because both Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Denver, so on and so forth, they're not just big, but everybody can defend on those teams. They're two-way players. There's athleticism, there's youth, there's two-way players. So that's going to be a focus for the Warriors for sure, is trying to add length, positional size, two-way players, guys that can, stay on the floor for 35 minutes in these kind of matchups. It's worth noting that the Warriors didn't beat Minnesota or Denver a single time this season. Both those teams swept.
Correct. I'm so glad you said that, by the way. The Warriors haven't beaten Denver in 2 years. I think if my math is correct. I'm glad you said that, because that's who you're up against, right? That's who you
Yeah.
got to model your roster for. I started to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I mean, and that's where things. That's why this challenge is so daunting. There's a salary cap in place. You can't just go spend money at whoever's available and sign the top notch free agents. It doesn't work like that. So the Warriors are gonna, I think, be banking on you're gonna look for sensible trades out there to try and get Stephen Curry some more help, a proven secondary scorer, some consistent scoring behind him. But you're gonna have to find bargains. You might have to hit again at the end of the second round of the draft, barring the Warriors maintaining their, the 3.5% chance, whatever it is, 4% chance they have of staying in the top four. You're going to have to go bargain hunting. You're going to have to find minimum level guys that are going to be able to, to step in and contribute. So it's going to be a challenge. But you take a look at these two teams, the size, the athleticism, the youth, again, with Oklahoma City and Dallas, it's a wild, wild west. And the Warriors weren't a playoff team, so change is definitely coming in some way, shape, or form. We'll see what it is.
And we're going to talk about that. You're absolutely right. There's going to be change. And the Warriors, if there's one thing going for them, and they probably have a few things going for them, but one of them is the salary, their salary structure itself. I mean, they've been in luxury tax hell for how many years? But if I have my math correct, first of all, I don't think Chris Paul's coming back. I don't think there's any chance of that. I don't know if you agree with me or not on that, but we got to talk about Chris Paul. Klay Thompson is a huge name. And you just wrote a column about some trade ideas, and I'd love to pick your brain on who you think is out there, and both for trades and for the mid-level exception, because and this is where I'm curious to know if you agree with me on certain points I'm going to bring up. One of those being, if the Warriors can hang on to where they are now, which is staying below the luxury tax, even though they're over the cap, you're eligible for not one, but two mid-level exceptions. And you could sign some good pieces with that. And so there's options there, whether it's the mid-level, whether it's trade. I'm going to pick your brain, Sam, after I give some love to some sponsors, and you can either kick back or relax, Sam, while I do these. That's entirely your call. There's a question already in the chat. If people want to jump in on the chat and ask more questions, you're welcome to do so. First and foremost, though, our first sponsor for the evening, sorry to be redundant. And that is a resource I think a lot of people could use. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's no stigma. I'm an advocate for mental health, and especially for improving what is easily the most important organ in your brain, right in your noggin right there. Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba and get on your way to being your best self. And one of the reasons why I love BetterHelp as a sponsor of this program, besides the fact that, they're a mental health service, they have therapists and licensed professionals to help you with whatever issues that are going on in your life, but they're virtual. So Hall of Famer Rick Barry went out of his way to talk about BetterHelp the last time he was on the program, discussing the stigma that a lot of people still, unfortunately, have with mental health services. And that's one of the many positives of BetterHelp is you do it from your home. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to go to any offices. You don't have to even dress up. Just stay in your cozies, turn on your computer, and speak to your therapist. And sometimes the therapist themselves could be the problem. And another excellent service that's offered by BetterHelp is the fact that you can cycle through therapists. If the first one doesn't work out, try another one. Finding that fit is vitally important in the process for improving your mental health, and BetterHelp is there for you in that regard. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you got to turn down the volume with all the shouting going on? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. A free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you follow Sam Gordon. He's the Golden State Warriors beat reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle. covering the team, traveling with the team. He's as inside as they get. Follow him on Twitter at @BySamGordon. Again, Sam Gordon's his name. Add BY in front of that. @SamGordon on Twitter. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads, the other crazy social media platform out there, @DogWild. That's my handle. Sam, would you agree? If my math is correct, it took me like a week of just figuring out just where the Warriors are with the salary cap. And if I have it correct, without Chris Paul's team option, that $30 million, the Warriors are just barely over the cap, but they're nearly $30 million below that first luxury tax threshold. And the perk of that is you're eligible for not one, but two mid-level exceptions, being in that weird no man's land where you're not paying luxury tax penalties, but you're also over the cap, so you can't sign free agents, but you can sign them through the mid-level exceptions. I think one of them is for $12 million and change. The other one is like $4 million and change. And that's where I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, my guess is that they want to sign Klay Thompson. The reason why that 2-year, $48 million offer was on the table last offseason was to make sure that they still fit below that luxury tax. And that's what that 24 mil will do. And then you could use those mid-level exceptions. And the Warriors got burned last offseason not having any of those options. I mean, they could offer were veteran minimums. And you saw teams offering $500,000 more, $1 million more to players to entice them and not even look at the Warriors. So hopefully the Warriors won't fall into that same trap this offseason, but they also can avoid those aprons. I know Joe Lacob said that. And so that's my guess. That's what I'm seeing is going on with the Warriors. They want to stay below that first luxury tax. And then who knows? I don't know if they want to trade Wiggins, but is that a fair assessment? What is your outlook in terms of their approach from the whole cap perspective?
Yeah, I think they definitely want to stay under the tax, and certainly the second apron, right? I mean, they were way over the apron. The apron, as you alluded to, they're restricting mechanisms in place that deter you or prevent teams from accessing things like the exceptions if you're too far over the cap. A lot of teams are gonna face those next season. As you mentioned, the Warriors are in a position where they don't have to, right? They can get off Chris Paul's deal scot-free. If there's a trade that emerges where they have to guarantee his contract to fit him into a trade, he becomes an expiring contract for another team, and you can still figure out a way by making the money match up to stay under the luxury tax. So there's going to be ways, there's going to be mechanisms and ways for this team to get to save Joe Lacob a little bit of money, and that again certainly something I think he's going to want to do this summer, given how last season went. With
totally, and normally, look, I am normally not the type of person who sympathizes with billionaires and in terms of them saving a few bucks. But the only thing I will say that in terms of defending Lacob and the spending is, like you said, those aprons, and there's two of them, right? But if you go for the second apron, the penalties are so punitive. Like I think I read somewhere that if they go over the second apron, they won't be able to trade their 2032 draft pick. I know that's so far down the road, but you still don't want to get into those situations and suddenly find yourself getting burned some years later. So what? Let's start with Chris Paul. We've talked about his team option, $30 million owed to him if the Warriors exercise that contract. I don't think there's a chance in hell they do it unless there's a trade in play.
Right.
Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I'm with you 110%. If there's a trade that materializes where there's another team, because they have to guarantee his salary in order for him to be included in a trade. Right now, it's not guaranteed. They could move off his $30 million, and he could be free to sign with whomever else. And I think he showed, right. But one of the reasons that I don't expect Chris Paul back is Chris Paul still has some good basketball left in him, even at the age of 39, perhaps starter level basketball. I mean, he's still a really effective player. The Warriors won his minutes. Do you want to be at this stage of your career a backup to Stephen Curry that's in a very specific role? Probably not. So I'm with you. I don't expect him to be back. And again, you can guarantee, figure out a way to guarantee his salary and put together a trade package, or get off the salary altogether scot-free. And if they choose to do that, then if you're making any kind of trade, I would imagine from a salary perspective, Andrew Wiggins would become the centerpiece of that. I think he's due, 26, 27 million.
Correct.
You're going to need to aggregate any potential trade. You're going to have to aggregate salaries that, match or come close to matching what you're getting back from the other team. So, to go back to your top question, yeah, I'm with you. I would be surprised if he's back, given the flexibility that they can create without him being here.
Exactly. And the thing is that they don't exercise that $30 million. He's not coming back, man. He wants a ring. He's going to ring chase. Yeah. That would be my guess. But who knows? I got to pick your brain in just a moment because we got one more sponsor we got to give love to here. But Klay Thompson, I mean, this guy is going to have a statue built someday. And my personal request is please just add Rocco next to him when you build the statue. I just feel like it would be super apropos. I mean, Rocco is just a part of the Bay Area lore as well. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are on Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins and who you think is out there that would be a good fit for the Warriors. Like, for example, Bloomer Vibes in the chat writes, there's got to be a way to get size and length and still be under or just above the cap. There is. I mean, that's what the mid-level exceptions could do. That's what trades could do. But I'm very curious about those specific two names from your perspective. I know you don't have answers, but you do have opinions, and you're an intellect, so you can give us some interesting thoughts regardless. Let's give some love, though, to our other sponsor for this evening, and that is DoorDash. Sam, what is your a strategy for Mother's Day, man? Like, do you have a good relationship with your mom? And if yes, are you going to see her? Are you going to buy her gifts? What are you doing?
We're like this. I love my mother, more than anything. We have a great relationship, and generally I send flowers home, and depending on if there's something she needs, we'll try and find a gift or something that fits like that. But flowers going home with a nice message. I can't wait for Mother's Day. One of my favorite days. You
just led into my ad read perfectly because DoorDash provides just that. If you want to make your mom smile, start Mother's Day with flowers, surprise her with gifts from the brands she loves. You could and have it delivered that very same day, Mother's Day, with DoorDash. I mean, our moms are a gift, so give her the best this Mother's Day. Why not? We would not exist without our moms. Spoil them, and you can give them thoughtful gifts that they deserve with the convenience you need. You could choose same-day delivery. You could schedule it a week ahead for when those flowers and gifts should arrive to her door with DoorDash. So get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place. And get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend 15 or more on your next flower, conveniences, groceries, or retail order now with the code Locked On NBA. That's Locked On NBA, LOCKEDON NBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, follow me on Threads, @DogWild. That's where I post all the show updates. And make sure you follow Sam Gordon, Golden State Warriors beat reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, @by Sam Gordon. That's on Twitter. Again, BY Sam Gordon. Find him on Twitter where he's posting all his great content. So what are your thoughts on Klay, man? To me, they had a 2-year, $48 million contract on the table. At least this is according to Shams Charania. And he turned it down. My understanding is they rescinded the offer during the season. They haven't spoken in months, at least until recently. I haven't been following over the last few days. What's going on there? What are your thoughts on Klay to the Warriors, man?
Oh, man. Well, Shams also reported today that there's mutual interest between him and the Orlando Magic. So the Magic are going to have some cap. They're going to have cap space, and the Magic need shooting. I think it all comes down. What does Klay Thompson want at this stage of his career, right? He has nothing to prove. Like you mentioned, he's going to have a statue outside of Chase Center someday. One of the best big game players of his era, one of the best shooters certainly of NBA history. We understand here what he's accomplished. There's nothing left for him to prove. What does he want? What does he want out of the next phase of his career? Does he want to keep this thing going, or might he want a change of scenery? I'm not sure he knows right now. I think of course things are going to develop and unfold and whatnot, and we're going to find out in very short order. But when we heard from him at exit interviews a few weeks ago, it seemed like he wasn't sure at this stage of his career. And again, there's going to be a market for him even though, we saw the signs of decline. We know what they are at this point. He's not the defender he once was, not quite the consistency. And it makes sense. He's going to be 35 next year, he went through 2 devastating injuries. That being said, he still made, almost 273 pointers. You're not just going to replace his shooting. If he leaves, he's still a very important part of what they do operationally, of what they do culturally, and I think can still be a very impactful player in Golden State, provided it's in a different role. We heard Steve Kerr allude to that in his exit interview as well. Potentially a full-time bench role if he's back in Golden State. Is that what Klay Thompson wants at this stage of his career? Is he willing to be potentially a reserve full-time and play a little bit of a different role where the motion, where he's not a focal point of a motion offense and is more of a floor spacer, catch and shoot player? I don't know. I'm not sure. That being said, there's going to be a market out there for him. The Warriors do want him back, understandably so, and we're going to see where this thing goes. Is he about getting, does he want to get paid and maybe take on a new role elsewhere with a young team or a different team, or does he want to stay here and kind of finish what he started? So these are all questions that are being answered and discussed, I'm sure, in real time. We don't have answers right now, but we will soon. I do know the Warriors want Klay back, and even at this stage, there's still a tremendous amount of value, provided it's in a different role than the one he had this past season.
Do you think and again, we're obviously just guessing here, this is conjecture, but do you think 2 years, 48 is still what's on the table? Do you think the Warriors increase that? What would you guess if you had to, which is probably,
2 years, $48 million seems a little bit rich for Klay Thompson at this stage of his career.
I agree.
I can't see that offer being on the table again here in Golden State. That being said, Orlando has way more cap space. They can just, your young guys aren't going to get their extensions for a couple years down the road. You can afford to pay him that kind of money in the short term. And again, for any team that wants to acquire Klay Thompson, obvious reasons, the shooting, the experience, the big game experience, the professionalism, the standard, all those things would be super valuable to a really young team. So there's going to be money out there for him. I can't imagine 2 for 48 is going to be available here in Golden State.
Yeah, there's going to be, if not the Warriors, you're absolutely right, dude. The Magic, maybe Philly, someone's going to throw the bag at him. You're absolutely right. It just comes down to what is going to make him happy. If he wants to chase a dollar, it might be somewhere else. And that leads to Andrew Wiggins, because this is an opinion that I feel like I'm the only person who ever says this. And I don't know if you agree with me or not, Sam, but Wiggins, before he came to the Warriors, and I know basketball's positionless, so this is just for the sake of making things make sense, but Wiggins was a 2 in Minnesota, and that's what he was in college. Dude's a shooting guard. He comes to the Warriors, and the year that everyone keeps evoking, 2022, when he had that unbelievable postseason, he thrived basically playing as a small 4, as a stretch 4, I think, because the opposition allowed that to happen. It was just a incredible set of circumstances where the path to the NBA Finals did not involve having to deal with a lot of size. And the NBA is just so different now. And every time I see Wiggins and them trying to force him into that 4 again, I just see a player who's completely out of position. So I guess what I'm curious to ask you is, could you see Wiggins playing his natural 2 if Klay leaves? Because I feel like that's what he needs to do if he wants to still thrive in the NBA. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's possible, but it's all contingent upon how much shooting the roster has and what kind of floor spacing you have. I think Wiggins on the wing, or Wiggins playing the 4 spot, like you mentioned a couple of years ago in the finals, works because, as you mentioned, the way the floor was spaced and there was a lot of shooting around him. Wiggins is he can make threes, but he's not a shooter, So it's important to have the floor space. He's a respectable 3-point, but you're not pinning your help side defense to him. You're just not. You're willing to help off him. So if Klay's gone, I think fortifying your shooting is going to be a huge. Even if he comes back, you're still going to need shooting in that starting lineup. So I think could he play the 2-guard spot? Yeah, for sure. I think he can, but what does the lineup as a whole look like if he's there? That's what that's where I think the other roster moves would inform how they go about using Andrew Wiggins moving forward.
And what you said about shooting, I heard Steve Kerr saying the same thing. That was on the top of his list. I heard in one of the interviews he did talking about spacing. I always hear this endless emphasis from Kerr on spacing, right? And I don't doubt the importance of it. The logic is sound. The more 3-point shooters you have, the more space there is for individuals to create their shot and make scoring easier. But it goes twofold. Like spacing can also involve a player on the inside that dominates, attracts gravity and then creates, like, for example, you look at the Celtics, you look at all the top teams, the your T-Wolves, if provided I'm accurate saying that, the Nuggets, none of like these teams aren't loaded with sharpshooters. Like if anything, there's like most of their strengths are their inside game penetrators. Like Tatum and Jaylen Brown are not necessarily like 3-point dart throwers out there. So my point is, like, do you like, I hear Kerr always bring that up, and again, I'm a Kerr critic, man. Like I think he's very one-dimensional. I think he's a flawed head coach, and the flaws are really popping now and they're showing with an aging team, because I don't think he knows what to do without having Steph and Klay and Dre at their elite levels. We'll find out, obviously, with these coming seasons, but so far it's not good what I'm seeing. But my point is, do you think so, on your just your personal opinion, not necessarily what the Warriors need to do? Do you feel like teams need that space? Like, is it that desperate of a thing for the Warriors where they need 3-point shooting? Or can they survive with, hypothetically, like a Wiggins or somebody who's not, because Wiggins is not a bad 3-point shooter either.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So
he's solid. I mean, he can make.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Oof. I mean, Denver's got Nikola Jokic. You can afford to have a different roster construction when you have a player like that. Like that's so dominant. The Wolves are loaded with athleticism and two-way wings and size. Their identity can afford to be a little bit different. I don't think shooting's necessarily the priority for the Warriors. Like as we talked about, right? If you can get wing players in there, if there's a more size in the, you have another center, maybe some more length in addition to Trace Jackson-Davis, a 7-footer. Those are also needs on the roster. But I do think there's merit to having a healthy amount, a respectable amount of shooting, right? It doesn't have to be that you don't need 40% shooters out there, but you need enough where the offense can still maintain its flow, as you mentioned, where the spacing is still on point. And if you can get length and that 3-and-D wings, that's why they're so in vogue, because you get defense and you get at least that element of floor spacing on the offensive side of the ball, if nothing else. So it's not the most important thing, but a healthy dose, a healthy diet of shooting is always something that's valuable. And the teams that are left, I think, have a healthy enough dose to get by in addition to their other strengths. Yeah,
I guess, and this is just me personally, but I just feel like there's been such an overcorrect to emphasizing 3-point shooting, when I guess I still value a 2-point shot. If you're
for sure.
2-point, you know what I'm saying? Like if it's fallen consistently and at a high level, you can win with that still. And especially when you look at postseason basketball, those threes just don't fall as regularly. So, but I digress. What do you think the Warriors are going to do with Wiggins, man? Do you think he's going to be in a uniform next year with in a Warriors uniform next year? Is he the guy that's going to get traded? Your opinion, sir.
Well, depending on what they do with Chris Paul, if he's not included, if his contract isn't guaranteed, and they move on, just part ways and do it cleanly, any trade for any super impact player, you're going to have to aggregate some salary. So I would assume that his salary would be a part of it. And it's he's on a lucrative contract. I believe it was 4 years, $109 million. So he's going to be making 26, 27, 28 million coming up. Did he produced at that level in the NBA Finals 2 years ago? He was a $28 million player. We haven't seen that consistently since. So, what else do you have to include for a team to take on that? What would a potential trade package look like? There's going to be draft capital. I would imagine a young player or two. If you're going to want to upgrade, it's going to cost. It's definitely going to cost. So I would imagine they'll explore trades with Andrew Wiggins and see if you can find a better, not necessarily a better fit, but a second. I think as much as anything else, a consistent secondary scorer is really important, because we saw Stephen Curry fatigue throughout the course of the season. He's going to be 37 next year. We see the teams in the playoffs right now that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a J-Dub beside him. Anthony Edwards has Karl Anthony Towns. Nikola Jokic has Jamal Murray. Luka Doncic, there's Kyrie Irving with them, right? So on and so forth. The list goes on and on. If you have a chance to find a secondary scorer, you're going to have to do what it takes to go get that player. And if Andrew Wiggins has to be a part of the trade, then so be it. If not, if you can't move off his deal and a trade doesn't emerge, I still think he has value, like you talked about, with his perimeter defense, with what he's shown in the past, but not quite, hasn't performed at the level that we've seen in the NBA Finals since. And for that reason, I think moving him it's not going to be a straight one from what you're going to have to include picks and whatnot and entice another team to take on his contract.
I could talk. I have like 10 more questions, but look, it's Minnesota, Denver. It's on now. Just promise me we'll come back soon. All right. Because
I'll be back soon.
Okay, thank you. I don't.
Yeah.
Look, this is a huge game, man. I mean, this Minnesota. I have no emotional stake in this. You do, but even I know how massively huge this series is. So let's go watch Nuggets and T-Wolves. Sam, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. We'll bring you back on the show soon. Anything you want to promote before you go? I know you got some new columns and stories for the San Francisco Chronicle, but promote away before we go.
Yeah, was out at the introductory press conference today for the new WNBA Golden State general manager, which was awesome, right? That team is going to be playing next year, and the new general manager, Ohema, I hope I'm saying her last name right, Nyanin.
No judgment, because I don't know at all.
Yeah, Ohema. She was introduced today by Joe Lacob. So I was out at the press conference, had the opportunity to cover the press conference today. Forgive me, Ohema, if I screwed up your last name. I'm going to learn it in very short order. So I was out there, so we can read a little bit about what she brings to San Francisco and to the Golden State on sfchronicle.com. And then this pre-draft stuff is coming right around the corner. The Warriors are going to be getting pre-draft workouts here soon. So hopefully, going to have some stuff on what kind of players the Warriors are looking at as they prepare for, to potentially find another rotation player in the second round. That's what Mike Dunleavy is going to try and do. And we'll have that all covered as the offseason gets underway.
Huge offseason. I mean, for the whole NBA, I feel like, I don't think it's just the Warriors. I'm sensing a lot of movement, man. There's going to be a lot of new players and a lot of new teams, and very fascinated to see what the Warriors do. People can read your content on the San Francisco Chronicle. It's that simple. Subscribe, read Sam's content. He's an insider. He's a beat reporter. Follow him on Twitter at @BySamGordon. We'll have you back on the show soon. Good luck to your T-Wolves. I'm jealous, man. Your club is so damn good, dude. It's not even funny. Like congrats. You might have a dynasty on your hands. So
hey, I'm a reporter. I'm just enjoying the games. I'm just an NBA. I'm just a reporter.
I love it, brother. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. And let's go watch the game now. Bye-bye.